signed up in advance through the website provided on the hearing notice or on the sign-up sheet located here at the hearing. If there's anyone present who wishes to speak but has not yet registered, you may do so by visiting the MTA website until 6:30 p.m. this evening. This is a public hearing under Article 2 of the New York State Eminent Domain Procedures Law. The topic of tonight's hearing is MTA's proposed acquisition of property interests that will be required in order for MTA and MTA Construction and Development to undertake and complete portions of Phase 2 of the Jamaica Capacity Improvement Project, or JCI project, or just project. As I will explain in greater detail later on, the project requires the acquisition of 1 property in fee and 6 permanent aerial easements. Under the United States and New York State Constitution, the government has the right to acquire private property for public uses, provided the government pays just compensation for that property in which it acquires. That power is called eminent domain or condemnation. MTA is a New York public authority that was created by the state legislature and has been granted the right to acquire property by condemnation for transportation projects such as the JCI project. The fact that we're holding the hearing today under the eminent domain procedure law tonight does not automatically mean that MTA will condemn all property interests needed for this stage of the project. MTA hopes to acquire as many property interests as it can through negotiated agreements with property owners. However, MTA simply may not be able to reach agreements with some owners and will be compelled to acquire those property interests by condemnation. New York law provides many rights and protections for owners whose property interests are acquired by condemnation, including the right to receive just compensation and file claims for additional compensation. Tonight's hearing is the beginning, not the end of that process. In each instance where an agreement is not reached with the property owner, MTA will provide additional notices and information to that owner prior to starting any formal legal proceeding to condemn the required property interest. Hearing format. As required under the eminent domain procedure law, this hearing will inform the public about the JCI project, particularly the work requirements for Phase 2 of the project, review the public use, benefit, and purposes to be served by the project and the proposed property acquisitions, and describe the project's general impact on the environment and surrounding communities. MTA published notices of this public hearing in the Daily News from July 10th through the 14th, 2023. MTA also mailed notices of the hearing to the affected property owners in the project area, including mortgagees. The hearing notices to property owners also contained a map indicating the proposed property interest to be acquired at each addressee's location. This hearing is being recorded, and a transcript of the hearing will be made. For those of you who have or wish to submit a written statement, I request that if you have not already done so, you may do so by visiting the MTA website, specifically new.mta.info/transparency/JCI-hearing, or sending statements by regular mail addressed to MTA Government and Community Relations, referencing the JCI project at MTA headquarters, 2 Broadway, room D like dog, 17-112, New York, New York, 10004. The hearing notice also provided instructions for members of the public who are blind or low vision, deaf or hard of hearing, or require translation to contact the public hearing hotline at 646-252-6777 in advance of tonight's hearing in order for MTA to provide accommodation. CART captioning and American Sign Language interpreters are available at this hearing. To access captioning at the bottom of the screen, select CC and you will be able to turn on or enlarge the captions based on your preference. Users will not need to adjust their screens to see ASL. The ground rules for this hearing are as follows. First, I will make my presentation, and then we will call on each person who has registered to speak. I ask that each speaker, if on Zoom, when called, allow for 10 seconds for a brief transition, after which the speaker will be able to turn on their camera and unmute their microphone. We will also keep this record we will also keep the record of this hearing open until 5:30 p.m. on August 10th, 2023 for the purpose of receiving any additional written comments. The nature and format of this hearing, as well as time constraints, do not permit me or other project representatives to answer questions raised by the public speakers. However, upon request, MTA can provide contact information For project personnel through MTA Construction and Development's Community Outreach Team, whom you may contact with any questions you may have after the hearing. I ask that all speakers limit their remarks to a time period of 2 minutes or less so that all registered speakers may be heard. Please note that an auditory signal will be played to alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left to conclude their statement. Keep in mind, MTA will be accepting written comments till 5:30 p.m. on August 10th, 2023, so everyone will have a fair opportunity to have their comments made part of the hearing record. I'd like to spend a few moments now to generally describe this project. The Jamaica Capacity Improvement Project represents Long Island Railroad's master plan for the future of railroad operations through Jamaica Station. The plan for Jamaica was developed from the results of numerous evaluations and studies and is being progressed through multiple phases. JCI Phase 1 is already substantially complete and includes the construction of a new passenger platform in Jamaica to provide dedicated service to and from Atlantic Terminal, as well as various infrastructure improvements necessary to support new service to Grand Central Madison. The objective of JCI Phase 2 is to raise the maximum allowable train speeds, increase train throughput, add parallel routing capabilities, implement universal 12-car platform capacity, and implement a full state of good repair throughout the Jamaica complex. Key project elements include reconfiguration of state of good repair of Jamaica Railroad infrastructure, including replacement of critical power and signal systems, the extension of all existing platforms A through E to accommodate the 12-car trains, strategic installation of higher speed switches both east and west of Jamaica, and the introduction of new signal systems allowing minimum speeds of 30 miles per hour within routes at the extremities, with routes at the extremities of Jamaica seeing 60 to 80 mile an hour speed limits. Work will be tentatively advanced through several stages, bundled as multiple projects over the next several capital programs. Each project will progressively build on each other and provide incremental benefits. The first construction effort of JCI Phase 2, called Hall Interlocking Expansion, is already in progress. The Hall Interlocking Expansion Design Build project is an important first step in this vital multi-phase program. Hall Interlocking will add the first of several new parallel routes east of the Jamaica Station complex by extending the existing E-yard layup tracks 2 and 3 by way of constructing a new closed deck rail bridge over 150th Street and the Long Island Railroad's existing Atlantic Track 1. Upon completion of this bridge, the first of these 2 new routes will be placed into service. To progress future projects and stages of JCI Phase 2, the acquisition of certain air rights, as well as one partial fee acquisition adjacent to the existing Long Island Railroad right-of-way, is required to facilitate the installation of multiple signal equipment platforms. These platforms and signal structures will support the critical infrastructure installed under JCI Phase 2 and allow employees to establish a safe clearing area while performing work. During the design of Phase 2, significant efforts were made to minimize the need for property acquisition and easements by using the existing Long Island Railroad right-of-way and optimizing the signal design to the extent possible while adhering to required federal and Long Island Railroad safety regulations and standards. Please note tonight's public hearing covers the private property acquisitions for this project. The project location, property interests are located at several areas along the Long Island Railroad right-of-way between the project limits, which extend east of the Kew Gardens Station through the Jamaica Station complex to approximately 177th Street. I will now describe the property acquisitions that will be required for the project. The specific location of each property interest that MTA is including in tonight's hearing is listed in the public hearing notice referenced earlier and in information that was previously mailed to each affected owner. Fee interests. There is one property necessary to be acquired in fee to support the project. This property is Queens Block 10152, Lot 195, Archer Avenue, Queens, New York, where the signal structure in that location requires ground support due to its size. Partial permanent easements. For those of you who might not be familiar with the term, an easement is a right to use part of someone else's property for a stated purpose, such as for a work area or a right of access. Easements may be either permanent or temporary in nature. The project requires 6 permanent aerial easements. These properties include Queens Block 10156 Lot 40 with a mailing address of 166-10 Archer Avenue, Queens, New York. Queens Block 10155 Lot 105, also known as Lot 1001-1002, 9261 165th Street, Queens, New York. Queens Block 10217 Lot 138 with an address of 93-20 170th Street, Queens, New York. Queens Block 10217 Lot 48 with an address 168-23 Douglas Avenue, Queens, New York. Queens Block 10217 Lot 45, address 93-30 170th Street, Queens, New York. And Queens Block 9998, Lot 91, also known as Lot 7501, with a mailing address of 147-40 Archer Avenue in Queens, New York. This concludes my summary of the private property interests that MTA will need for this phase of the project. Although subject to change, MTA anticipates under the current project schedule that it will acquire the various property interests for implementation of this project between late 2023 through the end of 2025. As applicable, MTA will also discuss property acquisition and relocation requirements and timeframes with all affected property owners and tenants, and will communicate updated information on scheduling when it becomes available. Public uses, benefits, and purposes of this project. At the completion of the project, Jamaica Station will have higher train speeds, lower station dwell times, more reliability, an overall increase in capacity capable of supporting 4 Western terminals, which include Penn Station, Grand Central Terminal, Atlantic Avenue Terminal, and the Long Island City Hunters Point stations, and higher customer satisfaction. Environmental impacts. Pursuant to New York State Public Authorities Law 1266-11, the acquisition of the subject properties is exempt from the requirements of New York State Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8, also known as the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, for the following reasons. 1, the property is contiguous to land currently being used for a transportation purpose. 2, the property is less than 10 acres in size. And 3, the acquisition of the property will not change in any material respect the general character of the prior transportation use of the contiguous property. Moreover, the property acquisitions are subject to and are in full compliance with the federal environmental review requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Due to the nature of the project, MTA anticipates minimal impact at ground level, as most of the work will take place along the right-of-way, which is elevated in and around the Jamaica Station complex. With respect to property acquisitions that I have discussed earlier, within 90 days from the conclusion of this hearing, in other words, 90 days from August 10th, 2023, the MTA board will make its determination and findings concerning the proposed acquisition of the property interests I have described at tonight's hearing. MTA will publish a synopsis of the determination and findings and will provide a copy of the full determination and findings free of charge upon written request. Also, MTA will mail copies of the determination and findings to the property owners affected by the project, including mortgagees. In addition, and upon request, a copy of the record of this hearing will be available for examination without charge. In the near future, MTA anticipates making written offers of just compensation to each property owner with a compensable interest in the property interest to be acquired. Where offers are made, the offers will represent 100% of MTA's highest approved appraisal of that particular property interest. In accordance with the eminent domain procedure law, each property owner will have the option of accepting the offer as payment in full, or accepting the offer as an advance payment, reserving its rights to seek additional sums through negotiation or court proceedings. This concludes my prepared statement, and thank you for your patience sitting through it. I will now turn this hearing over to Joe O'Donnell, MTA Construction and Development's Director of Public Affairs. Joe.
Thank you, Charles. In order to permit all registered speakers an opportunity to speak, I ask that you limit your remarks to a maximum time limit of 2 minutes. Please note that an auditory signal will be played to alert each speaker when they have 30 seconds left to conclude their statement. In the event that your name is called and you are not present, we will call your name again at the end of the list of pre-registered speakers. If you registered to speak under a different name from what you signed in with, if you are in via remote, please notify us so that we can call you when it is your time to speak. And when you begin speaking, I would just caution you to please provide your name, or recommend rather that you please provide your name and any affiliation you wish to announce so that we have it for the record. Charles, we have 2 in-person speakers registered to speak tonight. Nobody online as of yet, though we do have until 6:30. The first speaker for the evening is Mr. X. Mr. X, you can step to the mic.
Charlie, I'm glad you didn't repeat what you did on 315. On 315, public hearing was held in Manhattan and you almost put me to sleep. I'm glad you didn't do that this time. So you listened when I said you should limit your speeches. If the MTA head who could pass for Harrison Ford and David Lemon with a bigger nose and a smaller head can hold a public hearing, he can attend it. He missed that public hearing, he missed this public hearing. There's no excuse for that. I'd like to know, I first saw this public hearing advertised on the website last Friday. In the 2 previous weeks, it was unlisted. If he wants us to attend and testify his public hearings, he needs to advertise in a timely manner. You can't advertise under 1 week in advance and expect us to break our necks for him. He can't expect us to break it down and give it a sucker like a Generation X. Okay? It would have been nice if this public hearing was scheduled to be held at York College, which is easy to reach compared to St. John's University. And also, I don't know what, based on what you said, I don't know what exactly you plan to do, but at Jamaica Station, tracks 11 and 12 should be renumbered. It should be known as tracks 9 and 10. They should have 1 through 8 and 11, that's 11 and 12. Where are 9 and 10? Okay. And in the process, you should consider reopening Union Hall Street. It closed in 1976. You should consider reopening Springfield Garden Station, which closed years ago. In this plan, so this way the riders are served better.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Hicks. The next speaker will be Charlie Metzger.
Here we go. Good evening. My name is Charlie Metzger. I'm an associate attorney at the law firm of Catton, Muchin, Rosenman, LLP here in New York. We at Catton represent BRP Companies, which is the project sponsor of the crossings at Jamaica Station, High Rise, which is a multifamily mixed-use project located at 147-40 Archer Avenue here in Queens. With me tonight is Mary Seraphy, who is the managing director for design and construction at BRP. Mary and I are here tonight because BRP received the MTA's notice of public hearing, which detailed the MTA's intention to acquire a permanent easement, as was just described. My purpose in the next minute is twofold. First, it's to provide a very brief overview of the project And second, it's to reiterate BRP's desire to maintain a positive working relationship with the MTA, which it has enjoyed for years. For decades, BRP has partnered with state and local government to develop affordable housing, including here in Queens. BRP acquired the project site for the crossings at Jamaica Station from the Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, a nonprofit organization I'm sure is familiar to the MTA. The crossings at Jamaica Station provides hundreds of units of affordable and workforce housing across 2 project sites, both of which are 100% affordable. Pursuant to the requirements spelled out in the public notice letter, Catton and BRP are planning to submit written testimony by the deadline to the MTA. BRP is, of course, happy to work with the MTA to discuss the MTA's requirements at Jamaica Station. At the same time, as the sponsor of the project, BRP has obligations both to the project's tenants and to the city and state agencies which financed and approved the project. BRP wishes to raise several concerns, which we will do in writing, but let me close by saying that BRP looks forward to maintaining the open dialogue and positive working relationship it has enjoyed with the MTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. I mean, that's it for the moment, yeah.
Okay, in the hearing notice, the hearing time to register to speak is actually until 6:30. So we will, it's 6:23 right now. So the record will remain open. The hearing will not close until 6:30. But we're gonna just sit here until then for that reason. It's timing. Figured I'd kill two birds. Seems like.
Charles, it's now 6:30 and absent any additional speakers, that concludes our public speaking portion of the evening.
Okay, great. Thank you. If there are no additional public speakers, I'll now conclude this public hearing. As I mentioned at the outset of the hearing will be kept open through 5:30 PM on August 10th, 2023 for the receipt of additional written statements. Written statements may be submitted through the website listed in the hearing notice or by regular mail to the MTA. And you can still submit a written statement even if you have also delivered oral statements here at the hearing. Thank you and have a good night.